Hello and welcome to the Naked Expat channel. This one's interesting. 8,600 miles away and the family's still asking for money. Let's get into it. This is a Filipina in America. When I first arrived in America, I received a lot of messages from people claiming to be my relatives and asking for help, but I hadn't met them in person yet. I also got many solicitation letters. I really wanted to help them all out, but I didn't have a job right away after arriving here. I was too embarrassed to tell my husband because he was already helping my family and spending a lot of money on my paperwork. I'll come on to that again in a minute. I also felt guilty for not being able to help. It was a very stressful situation for me. I told my husband about it and he explained that even if we wanted to help everyone out, we can't. We can only select those who really need urgent help. There were times when I told my husband I was willing to sacrifice instead of buying something I wanted, just to save money for those who asked for help, because saying no was very hard for me. Until I realised I need to feel sorry for myself too. My husband was right. I couldn't help all of them who asked for help. We have bills to take care of too, and I have family in the Philippines to take care of. I'll come on to that again. So I started to say no, especially to people that I don't really know, because if I always said yes, I would go broke. And my husband and I are working hard here. We need to feel sorry for ourselves too, but we still lend a helping hand to many in the amount that we can afford, though we can't do that for everybody. Now that's quite interesting. It got me thinking, okay, well, I'll mention that. I'm going to talk about putting yourself first in another video, which look out for over the course of the next couple of days. But this is very, very common, and I could comment on this in two different directions. One, well, it's very, very nice that, in the Philippines, we all know family, family, family. So the American guy, when he brings his wife over to America, and he's obviously going through a lot of expense and a lot of hoops to jump through to get residency for his wife, etc. I know it's not easy in different countries, different rules, etc. That got me thinking, so, well, I did mention previously, and something that I've done, I met a Filipina girl and lived with her in Thailand. But that's, I think, different because Thailand's on the doorstep with the Philippines. It's not 8,600 miles away. And when you live in Thailand, I'm British and my girlfriend's Filipina, living in Thailand. So if anything happens, we're both vulnerable because we're both expats in a different country. But when you take somebody back to, say, the UK or Europe or America, you're at, I think, a distinct advantage in some respects because it's your home country. And your partner, your Filipina partner or Thai partner, can feel very vulnerable. But also you've got a question to yourself, is that the right thing to do? Now this lady, I saw a picture of her, she looks about 35, and we can only guess how old her husband is. But let's say her husband is 55. 20 years difference. That's going to get noticed in the States, in the West, the larger age gap, and maybe frowned upon, maybe not. And also you've got to think, well, why is she there? Because a lot of Asians prefer Asia, the climate and the way of life, cost of living, etc. Surprise, surprise, there's probably more opportunities for her in the States. Chance to earn a better salary. And she's already mentioned she hasn't got a job yet, but she's probably looking to get a job. And when she does get a job, if you were an American couple and you're married, because these couples married, chances are you wouldn't be working to subsidize and support your extended family. If you're an American husband, American wife, chances are you got a hard enough job supporting yourselves and paying all the bills and saving for the future, putting money away for pensions, etc., and for a rainy day and healthcare. And children if you've got a family. You're not going to be looking to support your brothers and sisters and parents and grandparents, are you? No, you're not. So again, that's a different direction. The American husband getting involved with a foreign spouse and bringing her to America. And I'm not sure exactly what the rules are, but you could say that is there a danger that if he expires his shelf life, she might find somebody else once she's got a green card or a residency status or what have you. And depending on the state and the laws of divorce, is he going to get hit and lose half of his assets if she suddenly decides in the future, I'm going to get divorced and I'm going to take half your money and I'm going to go and marry somebody else? Quite possibly. So there's a lot more risk involved. That could be that you could say the same about any marriage. Okay, well, you don't go into a marriage thinking that it's going to fail, but you do need an exit. But this got me onto another thing in a video that I will produce shortly. There's a lot of, when you look at YouTube and you look at the SEO, search engine optimization, and the popular topics, why say, for example, Naked Expat, Strip Back to Basics, is popular, I think, my channel, is for the reasons that, well, it's basic advice. It applies to anybody becoming an expat, irrespective of where you come from, irrespective of you're a Westerner moving east, or whether you're a Westerner moving to the Mediterranean or something. The same logic and prudence applies to all, and that's the basis for my channel. I run the risk of being a little bit too broad. That's why I do, based in the Philippines, make some videos that is predominantly orientated around Asia and the Philippines. Well, of course, because that interests me. But I generally want to put out content that's of interest to others as well. And if you Google something like dating in Asia, how to meet a Filipina, etc., it's massively popular. But it's all about chasing women. It's all about relationships. And I've had a couple of comments on previous videos, which, although they come across as being quite aggressive, in some respects, they're true. A couple of people have commented about, well, we know why guys go to Asia to meet women. We know why men go to the Philippines. We know why men get into trouble, because they're simps, to use Andrew Tate terminology, I think, because they're somewhat pathetic and they haven't got so much of a spine. They can't meet a woman in their own country, which is why they go to Asia. Or they have some sort of dominance characteristic where they want to dominate their partner, and they're much of a sort of mental bully. And so they're looking for a partner perhaps from Asia that's more submissive and more obedient, because they're basically an emotional bully. And that's going to end in tears no matter where you are, because the young girl that's perhaps a little bit submissive in her 20s is going to grow up and see you for what you really are, and that you are actually full of shit, and you're not actually a really nice person, and you've got issues. And that's why perhaps you've not met a nice person in the West. Those characteristics are true, because they do happen. A lot of men do come to Asia to look for women, and they behave and they date in a way that is not acceptable in the West. But as women in the East, the Gen Zs, the younger women now, teenagers stroke early 20s now, they're not putting up with the same crap that perhaps their parents or grandparents put up with before, because they have more choices now. They do earn money now. They do have jobs. And speaking about that, when you do get involved with somebody, do you want them to work? Because I know a lot of guys, perhaps in their 50s or 60s, they meet somebody from Asia. Let's say that you're Westerner and you come to the Philippines or Thailand, and you meet a really nice girl that's got a job already, maybe just a simple job, working in a grocery store, in the market, in a sari store, and she's earning a little bit of money. Now, anybody that's been to Asia for any particular lengths of time knows that Asians work really long hours and they work really hard. Some of them only have 2 days off a month. They're lucky if they get 1 day off a week. And they generally work Monday to Saturday and have Sunday off. And Sunday, what do? Most of the time you get two responses. What did you do on your day off? I sleep and I do my laundry. And it's true, guys, you know that's true. And they don't take their laundry to get done because that costs money. They sleep and they do their laundry because they're shattered. They've worked all week, really long hours. And sometimes they work, it's common to work 12-hour shifts, at least 7 till 7, if not longer. So if you've got an Asian partner, you're never going to see them unless they don't work. And if you don't want them to work, surprise, surprise, you have to support them. You have to replace their salary. So as a Westerner, you've automatically got more expense because you want to see your partner, you want to spend more time with them. You haven't got any time for yourselves unless if she works, unless she doesn't work. And if she doesn't work, you're going to have to subsidize her. That's a fact. If you don't believe me, come over and try it for yourself. There's no way you're going to get an Asian to give up her job for you, for love, unless you support her. And the reason she's doing it, the reason a lot of Asians have large families is because they're the retirement scheme for the parents and grandparents. they have 5, 6, 7, 8 kids, not just because of, say, in the Philippines, Catholicism, where you could argue that the Catholic Church wants to keep everybody poor because then they're like minions. You know, they're easily brainwashed by the church. I'm not going into religion, but you could argue that that is a case. But irrespective of that, in a lot of Asian cultures, the grandparents, because the elderly are very well respected and highly regarded in Asia, unlike in the West, where you can't, you know, old people are just smelly and they need to go to nursing homes and old people's homes, retirement homes. You don't want to deal with them. You're busy yourself. You don't want to deal with your parents or your grandparents. Whereas, of course, in Asia, it's family, family, family. And the grandparents or the great-grandparents are highly revered. And they've got large families. Why? Because they're the pension scheme. Because the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren are the ones working, and they're all, to do the right thing, donating a little bit of money to the great-grandparents or the grandparents. So they've always, the great-grandparents and parents have got money coming in from the younger generations. And the younger generations feel obliged, because if they've had anything like schooling and being taken care of and food on the table, they feel obliged to help their parents out. Not just out of respect, but out of obligation. And they're always going to have that obligation. That's why when you take on board an Asian, if you're a Westerner, it's family, family, family. You don't just marry her, you marry the whole damn family. And it's true. And they're there with their begging bowls. That example that I've read out is a classic example, where as soon as somebody moves to America, all of a sudden, everybody comes out of the woodwork and they want money. More for her if she sends too much money to people. If they're genuinely in need, yeah, maybe you could help them out a little bit. But as we know, alone in Asia is spelt G-I-F-T. Don't expect to ever see it back. All of these channels that you look on YouTube, which is all about men meeting women in Asia, or women meeting men in places like Turkey, where there's a lot of cougars, there's a lot of middle-aged and divorced women going to the Middle East and places like Morocco, Turkey, to meet young, handsome guys that are looking to get married and have a family. And they look at wealthy Western women as a great catch. Likewise, a lot of Asian women, if they come from certainly impoverished families, they look at Westerners as a great catch. And of course, their parents and grandparents are going to encourage the relationship because, you know, you're a potential cash cow. You might not like to hear that, but it's a fact. Whether you like it or not, it's a fact. Most highly educated Asian men and women are OFWs. They're working abroad. Unless they've got a fantastic job in, say, they're Thai and they're in Thailand, which is a large kind of economic hub, and they can get a great salary at home. Certainly in the Philippines, anybody with a half-decent brain is abroad working for 4 times as much salary. All the good doctors, all the good lawyers, all the software engineers. They're in the States. They're not here. They're not in the Philippines. There's a brain drain, as there is in a lot of countries. Just like I've touched on before with wealthy people in the UK. If you tax them too much, they're just going to leave. And then you won't get any tax from them at all. All of these YouTube channels that focus on dating in Asia and dating for middle-aged and elderly men and middle-aged and elderly women, finding a new partner, I think you're missing a trick here, folks, because in retirement, or certainly in your 50s plus, if you're looking to retire, there's 2 fundamental reasons, 2 fundamental things that you need to focus on. Yourself and your security. Now, for yourself, you don't need a partner. There's too much focus on finding a partner. You don't need one to be happy. You really don't. Focus on yourself, because a partner can drain you. And likewise, the vast majority of people in their 70s and 80s, their biggest regrets are not doing enough with their life, because they're at the end of their life and they're looking back and they're being retrospective. And as they reflect, the vast majority of them think, I wish I could do more. It's a bit like the story I told in the previous video about who do you feel sorry for? The person in the cemetery with nothing, or the person in the cemetery that's got $1 million in the bank? You feel sorry for the person in the cemetery with $1 million in the bank because they could have done more with their life. Now, that might sound selfish, but it's true. A lot of people die and they've still got a lot of assets. Now, sure, they might want to bequeath some of their assets as their legacy to their children or grandchildren and do the responsible, honourable thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But any beneficiary that genuinely loves you are not going to want to sacrifice, not going to want you to sacrifice your lifestyle in your latter years just for their benefit when you die. They're generally not going to want that. If they hate you, they might think, come on, hurry up, you bugger, die. You know, ka-ching, it's payday. But anyone that genuinely loves you doesn't want that. That's why there's a lot of skiers now spending kids' inheritance, because people realise that life's tough out there and you've worked all of your life and you've built up some assets, you've built up some savings. Well, what the hell are you doing it for? You've worked all your life for a nice retirement. Come retirement, you suddenly worried about running out of money. It is true, you've got to be prudent with your money, but it doesn't mean you can't spend some of your money. And a lot of people in their 70s and 80s, number one, they wish they'd done more in their retirement. And number two, they wish they'd retired early. Because when you think about it, when you look at average life expectancies of, like in America, it's like 77, 78. And in the UK, it's about 80, 81. Well, if you retire at 65, you got about 10 years, 12 years left. You've worked all of your life. You better start spending some of that damn money in the next 12 years, because your time's running out. You know, that the sands of time are running out. You've only got a certain amount of time left. I don't want to be too dramatic, but it's very, very true. You need to enjoy your retirement. And when you do that, you want to do more things. A lot of people wish they'd done more things, wish they'd travelled more, wish they'd explored more. Well, if you've got a nagging partner or you haven't got the right partner, it's going to be holding you back. It's like trying to run down the road with a ball and chain. So why? That's why a lot of people are at their happiest in their 70s and 80s plus when they're on their own and they can make their own decisions. They can do what the hell they want. They can go to Thailand, they can go to Philippines, they can go to Europe, they can do whatever they want. They don't have to worry about anybody else. And people say, oh yeah, but you're going to be sad and lonely. Well, are you? Because you can afford healthcare. You might want some female company. You can have female company on your terms. But if you're desperate to get involved with a partner, ask yourself the question, why? Why, if you're in your late 40s, 50s, and you come into Asia, why are you desperate to have a partner? Why is it? Because there's that old saying, I know it sounds a little bit rude, but, you know, knock one out before you go out. Because if you do, then it takes the edge off. Then you're not quite so horny and frisky when you go and talking to people, or you don't come across as like, you know, a dog on heat all the time, because you've already got it out your system. So ask yourself, do you actually need a person? Why? Why do you need a person? Because after you've sown your wild oats, come on, guys, be realistic. After you've sown your wild oats, it's like, oh, I'm hungry now. I want a pizza. Or it's not so exciting anymore, is it? You got over it. And then any constant nagging, they want to do something that you don't want to do. It's burdensome. It's burdensome. It becomes frustrating and annoying because you're not your own man anymore or your own woman. If you're with the wrong man, a nagging man that doesn't want to do anything, and you're a successful woman that's retired, and you've got somebody dragging you down, somebody that's a lazy ass, doesn't want to do anything, and you do. That's why it's not surprising now that people can be married for 30 or 40 years, and then in retirement, they split up. Have you heard that before? I bet you have. And why do people do that? Because they suddenly realise, oh my God, I've spent all my life with this person. Only now that we're together 24/7 in retirement, I don't really like this guy, or I don't really like this woman. And it's taken 40 years for the penny to drop. It happens. And people get fed up with it. I had a client who was 75 years old, and she went on holiday to Vietnam, and she went to Hanoi. And she was an ornithologist, her hobby, not a profession. And she used to love going around bird watching and stuff. And she fell in love with Hanoi. And I was looking after her money for her. And she told me, this was before email, she sent me a lovely letter saying, oh, dear Andrew, you know, I'm going to be away in Vietnam with my ornithology group. I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks. Come and see me like in the September time, I think it was, which is about 2 months away. So I'm like, okay, great. I get another letter from her about 6 months later, sent via snail mail in Vietnam, saying, can I see you? Can I come and see her next year? Because she's still in Vietnam. She loved it so much. She stayed there in the end for, I think, nearly 3 years before I saw her again. And she was 78, 79 when she came back, and it was fantastic. She had this complete book, and I bless her. I said to her, oh, I'd love to go to Vietnam. I'd love to go to sort of Hanoi and stuff. And then when on my next visit to her to look at her investments, she had this huge, great big portfolio with photographs and directions and all the places I need to go in Hanoi, or the people that I should introduce to the nice restaurants and stuff. It was like, before Google and the internet, it was my own little travel brochure for Hanoi that she'd done for me because she loved it so much. And I was amazed because I thought I was adventurous because at that time I was taking holidays to like Latin America, and I'd been to Russia and Ukraine, other countries in Eastern Europe like Sofia and Bulgaria and stuff. And I loved like Rio and Buenos Aires, and I went to Cuba. I loved all of that, and I thought I was being brave. But then this lady is 75, she goes to Vietnam for 2 weeks and stays there for 3 years. I was like, wow, I got nothing on this woman. And it was unusual then, but it's not so much now. People in their 70s now, the skiers, the spending kids' inheritance, is more common. And the biggest regret that a lot of people have got in their latter years is not doing enough in retirement and not retiring soon enough. Now, sure, you don't want to retire with bugger all money. If you retire if you want to retire, I had a message from somebody that recently that asked for my guidance, or my gut instinct really, about the fact that if he retired now at 55, his pension, his budget would be about $1,200 a month. But if he retired in 3 years' time, at 58, 59, his budget would be about 1,800. Now, even with inflation, I basically said to him, you need to wait a few years. Wait like another 3 years. And the difference between $1,200 a month and $1,800, $2,000 a month is quite considerable for the sake of 3 years. Hang on another 3 years, and that little bit extra will see you right. Not in all countries, and again, I know it all depends on your lifestyle, because you can quite easily blow $1,200 in one night, if you really wanted to, or you could make it last a whole month. But the balance of probability is you can live in Asia quite comfortably on $1,800 a month, sure. I never bother really answering queries when people say, how much does it cost to live in the Philippines? Well, it costs however much you spend, because it's irrelevant. Depends on your lifestyle, depends on you, depends on whether you're chasing women or not, or whether you like you enjoy your own company. If you enjoy your own company and you have a modest, minimalistic lifestyle, you can survive on bugger all. But if you want to chase skirt and you want a middle-class lifestyle, it's going to cost you $2,000 a month or more. And it depends on your location as well. And obviously, as you get older, you don't want to be living near the beach. Nighttime, you look out on black. There's nothing there to see. Daytime, you might enjoy the breeze. But they don't build hospitals near beaches, generally. So as you get older, it's probably more important you live in an area where there's subdivisions and you can walk around and stretch your legs. The only reason people live really in Dumaguete, although it's got a sea breeze, is they can walk up and down the promenade, but you can only do that so many times. Where else can you walk in Dumaguete? Don't make sense. Up the road from here is Clark, and you've got thousands and thousands of hectares where you can walk around and get lost. You can walk all day and all night. You've got 38 kilometres of new road and bridge with cycle paths all the way from New Clark to New Clark City. 38 kilometres one way, 38 kilometres on the way back. And all of the roads in between. You've got swimming pools, you've got all of the activity centres that you want. If you want that in retirement, or you get bored. A lot of people want to go and live on a beach somewhere. Well, live on a beach somewhere, but live on a beach where they've got some sort of culture and some sort of community, like, say, Cascais in Portugal. Or live somewhere where, if you've got a historical interest, like Porto. Don't go and live on a beach where you're a million miles away from any good healthcare or emergency services, because as you get older, it's not important. Do it when you're younger in retirement, for sure. Rent, because then you can always move. Don't ever buy in the provinces. The only reason you're going to build and buy land in the provinces in somebody else's name, like your wife's name, even if you're named on the title, is because she wants you to. It's not in your best interest at all. It never is. Why would you ever want to live in the province? You can't walk anywhere. There is no infrastructure. You're miles away from anything. And you can't have grown up all of your life dreaming, oh, I'm going to go and live in the middle of the jungle. No, you didn't. And if you're in denial, if you deny it, you're lying to yourself. You don't have to lie to me. You're lying to yourself. Nobody had posters on their wall as a child of a jungle in the Philippines or in the middle of nowhere. No, you didn't. And you're remote. You're away from everybody. You're very, very vulnerable. You don't need it. You get sick, you're going to die. The best you're ever going to get is a little municipal clinic. You're not going to get major hospitals when you need it. Those facilities are not available. The only way those facilities are available in Asia is when you live near big cities like Pattaya, like Bangkok, like Manila, possibly Cebu, like Angela City where there's Clark Medical City. It's not going to be in the more rural areas. You might have a little 3-star hospital, but don't kid yourself that you've got great medical services, because you haven't. You've got a better chance of keeping your motorcycle healthy than you have yourself healthy in these cities. I hope you've enjoyed this little monologue of mine. Until next time, enjoy.